Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Angry Cast and Fallout Sheltered. Back in the 80s, I'm going to say that like I'm Patton Oswalt or somebody, but back in the 80s, we had some really weird materialistic things. Now, today you might think that, something along the lines of like the Funko Pop dolls, the little figurines or whatever that we have out now. But back in the 80s, we had some strange ideas of what we thought were cool to have or own, or some kind of a status symbol. And I am no stranger to that, since that is the era in which I grew up. Now, I will say that I did not have a lot of these things. I did not have the money for a lot of these things. I was a child that grew up in a house that had 3 kids, and we got what we needed. We didn't get what we wanted. I didn't have a lot. I had hand-me-downs and everything else, but there were times where we could get certain things that were, cool. There was no, like, really frivolous luxury, mad money type purchases. I expected that one day that would happen. Now, I'm saying all this because of this trip we took last week for my birthday to a ski resort that was, local to us, nearby. And it just, it brought back a lot of 80s memories, and I'll explain why. So let's start down the path first of all. So back in the 80s, what we're saying, there were these things that we thought we would really, really want to have that I have no clue as to why they were desirable to me. First of all, I will go back to the earliest of memories, even into the 70s. The catalog, the Sears catalog, or the Wish book, or however you want to call it, and I've talked about this before, but there were things that I wanted in that I never ever got, and I can't even imagine what I would have been able to do with had I had, but it was something I always really, really wanted, and I never got it. And one of them, the first thing was, I was a big fan of the show Silver Spoons. And in this show, Silver Spoons, there was a mansion, and inside the mansion there was a train, a little, not a toy train, but enough of a train that an adult could ride it, but it was still not a full-size train. It was like a tricycle size, or like a little bike size, to ride it. And you could just ride this train in and outside, of the house. And it was just the coolest thing ever. And so in this Wish book, there was this plastic, of course, injection mold plastic train and tracks that you could get. You could buy a lot of tracks and set down different courses, and then you'd have to pedal and move it around. And I really, really wanted that. I mean, I asked for that every year for like 3 years growing up, and I never got it. And, I never understood why, but we didn't have the room for it, and it was a little bit expensive. I wish I could find one now and see how much it would have actually cost back then, and even equate that to today's money. But that was the one thing I always wanted. The other thing I always wanted were those little arcade games that were about the size of a lunchbox, or I guess in today's terms was in the size of probably at a 7x5 sized square box that was just like little joysticks on it with Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, that kind of thing. I really wanted one of those, and I never got it. it was just something I always wanted. Of course, I really, really wanted the full size. I really wanted the full size of a Galaga arcade cabinet, or the old Star Wars game cabinet, or Double Dragon, or one of those, or anything like that. Or even a full-size pinball machine. Of course, my favorite pinball machine would have been a Fun House, but I would have taken Jurassic Park. I would have taken the Addams Family, Terminator. I would have taken 8-Ball Deluxe. I would have taken any of those. Those were all great, pinball machines back in the day. So yeah, and I had friends that had like full-size pinball machines, and I was like, oh, that's so awesome. I mean, after a while, I'm sure it would get boring, but still, these are things that were like just mad money, no care in the world, more money than brains kind of purchases I wish I could have had. And then that leads me to into my teen years, and of course then I wanted a Nintendo, and I had an Atari, and I had to spend my own money to get a Nintendo when I was growing up. But then you could go to the mall, and in the mall there were these stores that had such stupid things for you to buy that were just, I mean, is it any wonder we were a country that had a craze about a rock with googly eyes pasted on it? I mean, my goodness. There was a store in the mall that you could go into that had artwork. And that artwork was like, sometimes you get it, if you were a college football fan, there might be an overhead shot a big huge poster or paint like print like of Notre Dame, the field. What's it? South Bend, the whole thing. And then, of course, if you're from the Pittsburgh area, it was Three Rivers or the Civic Arena or, Three Rivers back then because that was both football and baseball at the time. But there was also these ones, and I was always one of these that I wanted like the Hopper, the Nighthawks. And I mean, not even the original Nighthawk, although I would want that now. But I wanted the the one with Marilyn Monroe, Humphrey Bogart, James Dean, and Elvis in it, like the Boulevard of Broken Dreams version of it. But there was also these ones that were like they were not even like artwork you could consider to be very well done. I mean, like, not like we're going into the Louvre or to the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art, that kind of thing. This was just a painting or a print of like the Golden Gate Bridge or the just a lighthouse, but there was these LED lights, and I don't mean LED like we say now, like the can lights in your house and the ceiling are LED. I mean like these little itty bitty ones that are like these little diode lights that you would see on little control panels for things, on these old machines or old equipment from days gone by, the mid to late 20th century. But they were poked through, and so like you'd have lights on the Golden Gate Bridge, or you'd have lights in the lighthouse, and they would chase each other, and it was just like this they was paintings with lights in them, and this was like the coolest thing ever to me, and I wanted to buy one. I would wander into these stores when I was a kid, and I would say I want to get that, and it was like hundreds of dollars for this stupid thing, and I never understood what the allure of it was, but it was something I wanted. It was just this weird, just tchotchke thing that I wanted. I mean, we go into Spencer's. Oh my gosh, Spencer's, if you're not spending a lot of time back in the posters in the back with the cars and the girls and all that stuff, there are like all kinds of stupid little things in there, like the laser, the ball that you touch in it, like the plasma ball, or the thing was a bunch of pins all pushed into a thing, and you could make your hand or put it on your, how you want to talk about the origins of a pandemic? How the hell did we get out of the 80s without spreading an entire flu virus across the country from people walking into Spencer's and picking up that thing with all the pins in it, putting their face against it and sticking their tongue against it, making an outline of your face with the tongue sticking out, and then putting that back on the shelf, and then having the next person come over and do the exact same thing over and over again? How did we not die from infectious diseases back then? My goodness. It's craziness to understand that, but that's the thing that we had. We wanted the ball, the fart bags, all those little goofy things, all those things that were like maybe $20-$30, and that was like these little things. Why would you buy them? Like I remember when I was in junior high, and we went on a trip to New York City for class, and we went to FAO Schwartz and these other little stores, and my friend actually bought, this is the funniest story ever to me growing up, but we went into, I think it was FAO Schwartz or whatever, and this was like 1980, 88, 89, that time frame, so right about the time when the Batman movie came out with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. And my friend bought, it was a bag that had like a Joker thing in it, and when you hit it and hit the ground, it would laugh like the Joker. And so he had it. It was the coolest thing he liked it. It was drop it, would the whole laugh thing. And then we went from there, after that, we went to St. Patrick's Cathedral. And we were walking around St. Patrick's Cathedral, and there was actually a wedding going on. We got to crash a wedding at St. Patrick's Cathedral. We were in the receiving line as they were all coming out. And my friend with his bag walked up and was going to take pictures, and he walked up beside this old man who was kneeling down in front of the candles, and he was praying. He probably had a family member that was lying in a hospital somewhere, maybe Cedars-Sinai, or whatever, or just something really wrong, or just needed prayers for something, and he's sitting there praying, just very penitent and just all doing that and very involved in what he's doing. And my friend says, "Oh, I want to take a picture of this," and he drops the bag on the ground to take a picture, and that damn Joker ball went off in the middle of St. Patrick's Cathedral, and the echoes, oh my gosh, this thing was going crazy. It was insane. It was the funniest thing. He turned 3 shades of red when he did that, and he's like, I feel so horrible. Like, this guy probably thought I was laughing at him. And I was like, yeah, maybe. But just stupid shit like that. But then there was other stores in the mall that had other stupid shit that I wanted, and I don't know why. But there was there was and this comes back from when I was a younger child. In a class we had a it was gifted or impact, whatever you want to call it. And it was in this class we had, like, you could make dinosaurs. There was these little dinosaurs that were made out of they were like puzzles, 3D puzzles of dinosaur skeletons with like the same cardboard or whatever material that the little spoons for the ice cream cups. You know what I mean? Like tongue depressors type of wood that they had the skeletons for dinosaur puzzles. But not only that, we had a clock or a calendar that it never worked right. And I don't know why it never worked right. Nobody knew how to fix the thing. It was like a project for somebody for like their IEP or whatever to fix it. But it was a clock or a calendar that used little ball bearings or whatever that would run. It was just like a Rube Goldberg device to tell time or whatever, and it never really worked right. It was supposed to like go down these different levers and tunnels and valleys and drop and would drop in and make the thing turn and all that other stuff. But yeah, we had one of those. But then that this was a store that had those types of things, but also they had the one thing I really, really, really wanted, and that was this. It was about maybe a 2-foot long rectangle, maybe about 2 inches deep, and it was this box that sat upon a pivot, and it went back and forth, and inside was 2 types of liquid, one blue and one clear, and it was like a wave, and it would just tip back and forth, rock back and forth on that fulcrum, and it would just roll like the oil, and just the viscosity would make it look like it would go really in slow motion. And it also had the sound of the ocean, and I really wanted that thing, and I don't know why I really wanted that thing, but man, it was something I really, really, truly wanted, and of course I didn't have the money for it. It's one of those things. And then later on, and something that happened around the turn of the century in the 2000s, when DVDs became the media of the accepted media for movies instead of VHS. And there was and I talked about this before when we moved, and I had to condense all of my DVDs and my video games and my movies and my CDs and all that down from all of the cases down into these wallets, these 4-banger wallets, because I didn't have space for all this stuff, and the amount of space that this thing would have taken up to have all those cases. But there was such a desire to be the status symbol. Like, you walk into somebody's house and you see all their movies on display, and it's like, look at my movie collection, my home theater, look at all this stuff. And I was the same way, and I wanted to have a shelf just full of movies instead of books, because I wasn't really a big reader like my other friends might have been, but I wanted to have the movies. And that was another status thing. But this all happened because we went to the ski resort. The ski resort up in the mountains, and the reason why is because I remember, and I don't know if I spoke about this before, but I remember in the 80s there was such a trope, like it was like Die Hard, but it was a ski resort, and it was always, there was a group of slob, guys that goofed off, that were not serious, that were funny, that were always the charismatic ne'er-do-wells that were like the hot dogger skiers that could do all this stuff, and they were the cool guys, and they were usually like the trainers and whatnot. And then there was the rich, usually foreign, maybe German or Swiss or Scandinavian, something along the lines of European, Euro that's what they would call it, No, I'm not going to say it, but the way it was depicted in Die Hard, but like that they were the bad guys, and somehow there was like a developer that was going to take the mountain from the soft-spoken old guy that was an old timer from back in the day, skier, mountain climber, whatever, and he ran the mountain, and it was just like a local hangout, and now they wanted to develop and put up condos and all that, and so there was like this race to save the mountain between the slobs and the snobs, and Hot Dog the movie, the Chinese downhill, that whole thing, and then there's Ski School and all these other movies that and it just seemed to be like a trope, a genre of film depicting that, and we all thought that this was what really happened at these ski resorts. Now, I've never been to Vail. I've never been to a ski resort outside of Pennsylvania. and we've only have a couple of them in my area. And the one, it has a full-blown resort thing. You have like the entire hotel space, you have a pool, you had an indoor mini golf, you had of course all the slopes, the tow rope, and the chair lifts, and there was a tubing area, and then up along the ridge on the top of the hill there were all these condos that were put in. But you had all this space, and then meeting spaces and dining spaces, banquet spaces, and then shops and restaurants and all that. And it was a very large outfit. Now, down the road, this is the one we stayed at, there was another ski resort that had no hotel spacing. It was all condos, townhome, that kind of thing. And then Megan and I took a walk up to it the one day during the weekend, and we did a walk around the place, and I'm like, let's go check it out, because I wanted to get that feeling of being back in the 80s. Like, I'm going to go walk into the ski resort, I'm going to see, the the hot doggers and everybody else, and maybe I'll catch a Chinese downhill. Who knows? But we walked up, and there was just like a couple of buildings with like overflow for feeding and a bar and just like the pro shop and all that stuff, and then an event space, and then there was nothing else. And there was no big hotel space, there was no big pool, no big resort. It was just basically a place to go skiing. And I thought, man, I felt cheated, because I had this expectation I was going to see the grandeur of the 80s ski resort, because it's still steeped in the 80s back up there. It's not like it's really advanced to the 21st century. It's still got a lot of the same feeling and that atmosphere, and it wasn't there. And I was rather disappointed. And it just that got me thinking about all these things, these stupid purchases, and the materialism and the capitalism and everything that the 80s stood for. And then I was just flabbergasted that this wasn't even apparent anymore. And I thought, maybe I dreamt it. Maybe it was like a Mandela effect, where I didn't really know these things were happening. I just assumed that this was a way, as I willed it into existence from my own brain. And that was kind of a sad. It was like a sad thing, like finding out about the truth about certain things in your life that you used to accept were being magical that weren't. It was just like your parents, and it hurt a little bit. But I just wanted to bring that up, and I wanted to talk about that because I thought it was such a cool concept in my brain, and all these stupid things that I always wanted. And I have a couple of Funko Pops, and I have some posters from movies, but that's pretty much it. I'm not even going to go and get it like a PS5 at this point, because I just don't have any space or time for it. So yeah, that's sad. But yeah, so that's the end of that story. Alright everybody, I think we have covered everything we're going to cover, so let's get back to the vault. We got our Mr. Handy and everything else. Thank you all for watching. Have a good weekend. We will talk to you next time. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of the planet, and remember, the 80s was an awesome decade, but we don't live there no more. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.